Ladies and gentlemen, the Nuggets are in trouble. The Nuggets are down 0-2. Not only did they lose home court after game 1, they are going on the road down 0-2 now. They are going into Minnesota down 0-2. And things are getting scary. Before we start this video, by who venue? We're going to react to this video here in a quick second. I want to shout out the Minnesota Timberwolves, man. I ain't gonna lie. If there is one team in the league that has just slapped me in the face and proven me the hell wrong, it is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I thought out of the teams last season that we're going to take a slump, and if anything, we're going to get worse. I really thought the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to be that. I really thought Cat and Gobert really just, they don't work out. You know what I'm saying? It's just two centers at that 4 and 5. It's not going to work out, but Cat has definitely made the right adjustments in his game and the right sacrifices overall to make that work. I want to shout out Karl Anthony Towns for that. And going into these playoffs, I was worried about the lack of playoff success, the lack of playoff experience on this team, but I underestimated how much, a Mike Conley would bring to the table in that regard, or Rudy Gobert would bring in that regard. Hell, even Karl Anthony Towns, I understand he hasn't had a lot of playoff success, but it's not like he's new to it. And even Ant's been there 2 times now prior to this year, and speaking of Ant, shout out to Ant. That dude is ready. That dude is ready to go. But with that being said, man, let's get into this video. What is going on with the Denver Nuggets?
The last time the Nuggets lost a game on their home floor was March 29th against the Timberwolves. That was until the Wolves once again strolled into Denver for game 1 of the second round and repeated history.
Damn.
In my preview of the series, I said that the biggest X factor could end up being whether or not Cat can stay out of foul trouble, so naturally he picked up a foul 2 seconds into the game. Something I wasn't expecting though was for the Wolves to put Ant on Jamal. McDaniels on Porter pretty much solves that issue, and Edwards is a true hound on the ball. As a result, Jamal really struggled to open this game, scoring 0 points in the first half for the first time in his playoff career. To make things even tougher, a few minutes in, the Wolves switched that matchup to McDaniels, not letting him get comfortable, and even if he's able to get into the defense on a drive, there's still Rudy Gobert back in drop coverage.
I'm not sure how much Jamal's injury is playing a factor in all of this, but I will say this. Even though he had his moments against the Lakers, a lot of moments against the Lakers, specifically 2, that honestly ended the Lakers season. As much as I really wanted to make the case for Jamal Murray being a playoff riser, hell, Jimmy High Roller made a whole video about it. He hasn't had a good series. He hasn't had a good playoff so far, dog. Like, if we really look at this last playoff series against the Lakers, again, he had his moments, but for the whole series, he was not bubble Murray. This is not playoff Murray. This is not the playoff Murray that we expect. Against the Lakers, Jamal Murray shot 40% from the field, 29% from 3. Now, I understand his impact goes beyond that stat sheet, and I do think this is kind of blowing it out of proportion how bad Jamal Murray was. But yeah, Jamal Murray hasn't been super duper star Jamal Murray in these playoffs so far, and in these first 2 games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know how much that injury has played a factor, but nevertheless, you are out there. And even with that injury and what I've seen from you, I am still expecting more than 13 points a game. I'm going to keep it a stack. I am more expecting more than 28% from the field, 25% from 3. You are hitting your free throws, though, so shout out to Jamal Murray for that. But nah, if Jamal Murray is going to play like this for the rest of the series, Denver's getting swept. Hell, if Jokic plays like this for the rest of the series, Denver is getting swept. Some adjustment must be had, and also after game 2, Jamal Murray may even get suspended because Jamal Murray was on some fuck shit in game 2. I ain't gonna lie. But damn.
Speaking of Rudy, he was the key in not letting Jokic get comfortable. On their first possession, he picked him up in the post and did a good job of holding his ground to force a tougher look over the top. Then a few minutes later, he's matched up again, Joker tries to cut in front of him, and he probably gets away with a little grab of the jersey, but the result is a turnover.
Little bit.
Primarily though, it was Cat who got the Jokic assignment so that Gobert can roam the floor as a rim protector, and this is super tough to deal with because Cat's quick on his feet, strong and lengthy, while Gobert just serves as a wall in front of the basket, making Jokic live in the mid-range. The amount of size and length on this defense is just absurd. Jokic is cross-matched with McDaniels and tries to take him on a drive, only for him to swipe the ball off his leg, while two other 7-footers were getting ready to collapse. Like I mentioned earlier, Porter was basically neutralized during this time. When it wasn't McDaniels, it was Edwards who was chasing him all over the court, and as we all know, his game is built on finding space to catch and shoot. At one point, he tried to rewrite that narrative by isolating Gobert, which turned out to be an
You know what's crazy? My game plan would be to, because if there is a hole in Minnesota's defense, I would say the weakest link is probably Mike Conley. But their defenders are so good that, like, they're just going to fight through the screen, dog. Like,
excruciating watch as he didn't create any sort of space at all against the big man. He ends up turning it over on an errant pass, and more than 6 minutes into the game, the Nuggets have scored 4 points. As for the other side of things, it was all Anthony Edwards. He opened up the scoring with a face-up 3 from
the way Ant started game 1, excuse me. Yeah.
Corner, and about a minute later, he catches it on the wing, fakes the 3 to beat a closeout, then goes to a bump midi, which he hits for 2 plus a foul. On this next one, he initiates from up top. Conley sets a screen to get him to switch on to Murray, and he wastes no time pulling up for yet another jumper.
That jumper
as soon
is
as
smooth,
that outside threat is
y'all.
established, all of a sudden, driving the ball becomes a lot easier. Here, he uses his explosive first step to easily beat Gordon off the dribble, and it also opens up things for him away from the ball. When setting up action, Jamal top locks him, to which he backdoors down a wide open lane and scores off the feed from Cat. Cat's unique combination of shooting and passing from his position makes this offense so much more versatile. Here, he's going to run jumbo-sized pick and roll, look away the helping Jokic before throwing a dot to Gobert down low, and in a matter of 7...
I really think Cat is the key to the series, for real. And I think because of our perceptions about Cat in the playoffs, like, we've overlooked how good Karl Anthony Towns is. But in this series specifically, if he can get it going, he's a mismatch nightmare. He's a mismatch nightmare in most nights. He was a mismatch nightmare against Phoenix. And in this series, I understand Aaron Gordon is a good defender. He definitely got the size advantage on Cat. But he can shoot over the top of AG. I think he can cook Jokic on the offensive side of the court. I don't think Jamal Murray can guard Cat. MPJ can guard Cat. KCP can guard Cat. And anyone off the, like, Cat is really the key to this series, in my opinion. And especially depending on who they run, if they put Jokic on Cat, they're just going to run everything behind Jokic, and there's not going to be much rim protection.
7 minutes, they're in complete control of this game. Not for long though, because after being punched in the mouth, Denver decided to fight back. You once again have Jokic going one-on-one with Gobert, and he backs his way in close for a soft touch finish. Then a play later, Naz Reid finds himself switched on to Porter. I'm sure you can see the difference when there's no longer a super athletic wing chasing him. Anytime the Wolves found themselves switching matchups like this, the Nuggets took advantage. This time Alexander Walker has to defend Jokic in the low post, which isn't exactly ideal. Well, to be fair, there really isn't an ideal matchup for Jokic in these spots. Even against Gobert, he uses his size and strength to battle for position and draws another foul. On defense, they brought really aggressive ball pressure, which Minnesota's bench unit really struggled with. They were able to force multiple turnovers, leading to advantages going down the floor, and this lob to Porter marked an 11-0 run. Here's another one that starts with some pace. Reed gets cross-matched onto Reggie Jackson, who uses his speed to blow right by the big man in space on his way to a layup, and Reggie's contribution off the bench was huge. This time it's the two-man game with Jokic, where he threatens a drive before stepping back for a long-range jumper. Next time down, instead of Jackson, it's going to be Porter who receives a handoff, and with Gobert on the bench, there just isn't nearly as much resistance at the rim. That one gave Denver the lead, but they weren't done yet. Now it's KCP who runs the two-man game. Cat drops back, so Jokic pops, and he's left with some space to pour in 3 of his own. After going down 18-4, they went on a 21-3 run to steal all of the momentum.
That was crazy.
And after a bucket from Alexander Walker, the first quarter has come to a close with the Nuggets holding a 2-point lead. As for the non-Jokic minutes, another thing I said before the series was that I was really worried about how their offense would hold up against the Wolves' defense.
Yo, if y'all been watching these games, I didn't feel bad for Jamal, dog. Yo, Jamal is getting hounded. Jamal Murray is getting fucking hounded, y'all. Oh my goodness.
Defense, and they pretty clearly struggled. However, their own defense more than made up for it, completely stalling Minnesota's scoring and continuing to force turnovers. So when Joker checked back in, that lead had actually been pushed up to 4. At first, they gave Gobert the assignment, and on this one, Jokic cuts backdoor into an open lane, where he just so happens to run into another 7-footer. Against Rudy, they continued to let him play one-on-one in the post, backing his way in for one of those short mid-range jumpers, and about a minute later, they switched it to Cat. What I want you to focus on is how he defends the pick and roll. He doesn't care about Reggie Jackson in the slightest, knowing that even if he finds a lane to drive, it leads straight to Gobert under the basket. Yep. And the same goes for those Jokic post-ups. Here, it's Naz Reid who tries to defend, and Joker easily gets deep in the paint, but he can't turn over his left shoulder because Rudy's there waiting. The result? A really tough shot. Even when he's cross-matched with...
I think Minnesota has done the best job of addressing Jokic. I think every other team in the Western Conference... I mean, Dallas is trying. They got Lively. They got Gafford. Maxi Kleber was another big that they can throw at Jokic, so there was that. But I think Minnesota has definitely done the best job of addressing how to beat the Nuggets specifically. I think when you look back in history, there have been so many examples of players talking about how, like, yo, I ain't gonna lie, I understand this is a 30-man league, but we are trying to beat one specific team in the playoffs. LeBron has talked about how, I think in 2009, the focus was the Celtics. The focus was the Celtics. The Houston Rockets in 2018. The focus was the Warriors. And I think when there's a clear top dog in your conference, let alone the whole league, I think not really doing anything to address that and just, hey, what can we do to improve? That's not how this works, dog. Like, matchups are a very, very big part of the game. And when there's an inevitable, when there's a dude that, hey, you can try to avoid them, but you're probably going to run into them, you got to be ready. You got to be ready. Now, if the bracket works out the way it works out, in terms of like Dallas and OKC, if the Minnesota Timberwolves do end up beating Denver, now they don't have to deal with that. Hey, it worked out for you. But I wouldn't go into a season just not addressing that shit, because when you do face that inevitable team, you're fucked. You weren't ready. You weren't ready.
And appears to have an easy post-up. Here comes Rudy from up top to take away a layup. Then when it gets moved to a cutter, well, he takes that away too. During these minutes, the Nuggets had both Christian Brown and Peyton Watson on the floor, two weaker outside shooters, so Gobert was able to just play free safety at all times. On the other end, Ant continued to make things happen. Against a smaller Jackson, he uses his strength to create space for a mid-range jumper, and that mid-range scoring was huge for him all night. In the pick and roll, Jokic decides to sit back in a deep drop, leaving him with room to step into another jumper. Then as soon as Jokic comes up to the level, he makes the right read on a bounce pass to Gobert, who also makes the right read to kick it back out to Towns for a top-of-the-key triple. The big problem in quarter number 2, though, was the fact that outside of Ant and Cat, they had zero offensive production. The other guys shot a combined 0 of 4 from 3 and 1 of 8 from the field. Whenever Naz Reid tried to drive, he couldn't get anywhere near the rim against that aggressive help, so in those 12 minutes, they only scored 17 points, which actually would have been enough to win the quarter because of that defense if it weren't for how strong the Nuggets closed. First, it was this beautiful skip pass to a wide open KCP in the corner for 3. Then in transition, Jokic is going to take it down the middle of the floor on a drive, where he slowly steps his way into that patented floater. And because the floater is such a threat, when they set up pick and roll, Gobert steps up to close that space, to which he instead turns it into a lob to the cutting Gordon. Then on the final play of the half, they set it up again. Jamal does a good job of pressuring the defense, so Jokic once again has space to get to his floater. After winning both quarters by 2, Denver enters the half with a 4-point lead. Coming out of halftime, the Wolves made a very clear adjustment to their offense, using Cat's skill set to punish mismatches. When Jamal stands in front of him on the perimeter, he can shoot over the top like he's not even there. Or he can use his strength advantage by putting it down on a drive where he just...
People forget, dog, when we're talking about NBA unicorns, in this modern era, Cat really was like one of them ones. I'm glad that 2015 class is getting its due justice now, because there was a period in time where, like, they was looking kind of busty. No Drizzy. Like, Cat was a good player. KP was a good player. But for unicorns, there was kind of disappointing a lot of people. I'm glad that we've gotten to a point where, like, we just accepted who they are. And now that they're in a role that better suits them, now that we understand they're probably not ones on championship teams, putting them in that 2, 3, maybe even 4 role as 7-footers who can put the ball on the floor and stretch out the floor like crazy. I think the way Cat and Porzingis specifically have evolved and have been evolving these last couple of years has been tremendous to watch. And we're seeing Karl Anthony Towns, in my opinion, the best utilized he's ever been.
Bulldozes his way into a floater. It's the exact same thing against KCP. Driving right and using his left shoulder to go right through his chest, getting to the rim so easily you'd think it's a layup line. It wasn't just Cat who got going though. In general, the third was a nice change in tempo from quarters 1 and 2, while the first 24 minutes were defined by stringing together stops and grinding out a few possessions here and there to get points on the board. These next 12 might as well have been a shootout with the way both offenses were performing. Mike Conley especially had some big moments, attacking Jokic in the pick and roll with his use of off-the-dribble threes, and after that scoreless first half, Jamal started to heat up a little bit as well, most notably with this absolutely ridiculous finish over Gobert. Ultimately though, it would come down to how well the Wolves closed. Denver really struggled to get the ball to Jokic because while Reed is battling for position, you also have that other guy with the 7'10" wingspan playing the lanes.
I'll say this. This is easily, to me, the best team Denver has faced since their championship run. In the last 6, because they went through the first round, second round, third round, finals, first round this year, and this round, Minnesota is easily the best team Denver has faced in the last year. I think this is a team that is it's just so well-rounded. So well-rounded, and they're elite at things. You know what I'm saying? Specifically on defense, right? I think if you look at the matchups Denver has faced, I'm not about to sit here and say they're weak, but there have been extremely weak pain points when it comes to the teams that they face. I think Minnesota last season, I'm not taking it away from Denver because, again, you face who's in front of you, but Naz Reid did not play in that series. Jaden McDaniels did not play in that series. And it's just a whole completely different team. Minnesota wasn't the team that they were last season. But nevertheless, it's the first round. You're supposed to face a pretty weak team in the first round, in my opinion. The second round, they face Phoenix. And Phoenix, I think ever since last season, hasn't really had the proper depth that they needed. They haven't really had the proper depth that they needed to really compete. But even Phoenix was giving Denver fits with the fact that they had 2 dudes that were 3-level scorers and was able to put a lot of pressure on their defense. Like, Denver's defense is solid, but let's keep it a stack. It's not perfect. And when you got a D-Book and a KD on the other side to really put that pressure on, it was a nightmare. They go up against the Lakers and Darvin Ham. I don't know. Darvin Ham also from a perimeter defense perspective, I don't think the Lakers have the personnel that the Minnesota Timberwolves have. And then in the finals, with all due respect to the Miami Heat, you can make a case that that's probably, I don't want to be disrespectful, man, but I'm just saying, once it got to the finals, that team ran out of juice, and we clearly saw the talent difference between Denver and Miami. Again, specifically from the perimeter defense perspective. When you look at this team, they have perimeter defenders. They have Ant. They have Jaden McDaniels. They have Nickeil Alexander-Walker to throw at you. When you look at their backline defense, they have arguably the best rim protector in the league. Probably not because of Victor Wembanyama, but Rudy Gobert is nevertheless an elite rim protector. I don't give a fuck what you say. Rudy Gobert is an elite rim protector. And then off the bench, they got scoring with Naz Reid. And I think this is really, to me, why I am going to take Minnesota so much more seriously this playoff run. I truly think they have a shot to win a championship now. It's because of Ant. It's because of Ant. I have been very, very big this year on, if you want to win a championship, you need a tier 1 player playing at tier 1 levels. And Anthony Edwards and the way that he's playing so far, while throughout the season, I want to say Anthony Edwards is in the conversations of a Jokic, of a Giannis. In these playoffs, he is playing at that level. In these playoffs, 6 games so far, 32 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, 55, 42, 82. Playing stellar defense, 2 steals, a block, but again, you just got to watch the game. The stocks don't even do it justice. Anthony Edwards is playing stellar defense. Putting pressure. Coming out the gate swinging. How Anthony Edwards is playing so far is how a tier 1 player, a leader of a championship team, should be playing. And the fact that he's doing this at year 4? Year 4, age 22? Boy, it's scary. It's scary hours. I ain't gonna lie. It's scary hours.
And on the other side, I bet you can guess who started to take over offensively. All of the same things as earlier were still working. You've got a middle of the floor isolation where he throws that bump before turning into a jumper. Then when he gets the Reggie Jackson matchup, he instead plays out of the post in an open corner, easily working his way baseline for 2 points at the rim. When Gobert checked out, things became a lot easier for Jokic because now he's able to isolate out of the post without that extra help. So instead of a tough look over the top, it's some beautiful footwork into a little flip shot. Still, the Wolves won this quarter by 6, so by the time that third buzzer rolls around, they've actually taken the lead. Now it's time for the non-Jokic minutes, and unlike last time, they found some offensive juice. Instead of relying on outside shooting, they started to force the issue going downhill, and as I mentioned, that's a lot easier to do with Gobert on the bench. There's also the fact that Jamal was now in a different mode with his shot making. When Cat switches onto him in the high pick and roll, he slowly backs his way out to the perimeter, finding some space for 3 points, and a chance at 4 with the foul call. The key to these bench minutes, though, has always been the defense, which is unliked by the versatility of Aaron Gordon, on the very first play completely stonewalling Cat in the post. That's all good and well, only the Wolves have 2 centers on the floor. So if Cat can't take advantage of Gordon, you best believe Naz Reid can make easy work of Justin Holiday. The 6th man of the year was in attack mode during these minutes. This time it's a fake dribble handoff to get the Murray switch, then he takes advantage of the mismatch with a big body drive and finish. And when Ant checks back in, he does the same on a physical drive. The defense collapses, so he kicks it back out to Naz, who fakes the 3 and puts it down himself.
I definitely, the reason why I love this series so much, in my opinion, is number 1, the lack of injury excuse from both sides, and number 2, I think these are teams that, even from a future perspective, there's nothing to blow up. So when I'm watching this series, it is just pure basketball, in my opinion. It is just, these are 2 comparable teams going up against each other. Who can outplay who? Who can outplay who? And I do think if because people want to push narrative so much, people want to revise history, take away from things, try to they gotta blow it up now. Nah, this series, there's nothing to blow up. We don't have to be extreme about it. I really do think this is a case of two comparable teams, and one is just outplaying the other. I think sometimes it is just as simple as that. We don't gotta do a deep dive on what went wrong. The only deep dive we gotta do on what went wrong was what happened on the court, and that's it. No drama, no nothing. It's just pure hoops.
For another kick out to Conley, that's just beautiful offense. It all starts with Ant's ability to get into the defense time and time again. Here, he patiently navigates the pick and roll and finds a lane that takes him all the way to the rim, and even when there really isn't a lane to attack because of the aggressive help, he can fall back on some of that impressive mid-range shot making. Or if the defense is too aggressive, like KCP loading up at the nail, he can threaten a drive before moving it to the wing, which leaves Nas with a great look from 3. These next few minutes were all about Nas. When Ant tries a pull-up 3 in transition, here he comes flying in for a big-time putback dunk, and this next one starts with Ant drawing 2 in the high pick and roll, making the right skip pass to Nas in the corner, which creates a long closeout for him to attack on his way to 2 points plus a foul. Next time down, it's going to be Conley who runs pick and roll, and he too draws nail help before leaving it to Nas on the wing, who puts up a 3 to score 10 straight points for the Wolves. The Nuggets weren't just rolling over though, and this is about the time where that two-man game starts to take over. You still have Gobert roaming down low to shut off the rim, but now when they leave Christian Brown open, he finally makes them pay. About 2 minutes later, they set it up again. Nas makes no effort to play the ball, funneling Jamal into Rudy, and he steps into a floater. So next time the two-man game is run, Nas is going to prioritize the ball with a hedge, letting Jokic catch it in the short roll, and here's that 2-on-1 situation that is seemingly impossible.
Bro, I seen this shit. I'm like, nah, Gobert got this. That's how I know Gobert different, bro. Because this shit was happening in LA, and this was Bron. Boy, that's a lob. Or a floater. I ain't gonna lie. A very efficient floater. But, Gobert got this game. Watch.
To stop. Gobert isn't a normal defender, though, and breaks up a lob to Gordon. Their defense of the two-man game was just perfect during these closing minutes. Cat and McDaniels don't let Jamal get any breathing room from the mid-range, and they're still able to recover to not leave Jokic alone up top as he tries a 3 and misses badly. If shutting down the two-man game wasn't reason enough to believe that the Wolves were going to walk away with a win, how about a 15-foot floater from Gobert off the glass? Or maybe Anthony Edwards pulling out his inner Michael Jordan with a post fadeaway over the right shoulder. That one put them up 11 with just a minute and a half left to go, and Joker did his best to force the issue, cutting into the deficit a bit, but ultimately it was too little too late. Minnesota ended up taking this one by 7, stealing home court advantage for the rest of the series. Of course, leading the way was Ant, who had a calm 43 points on 68% true shooting. You know, nothing too crazy, and helping him offensively were guys like Cat, Conley, and Reed, who all had incredibly efficient games. I think the key, though, was how they stalled Denver's offense. Rarely ever do you see Jokic shoot poorly, and not only was he 11 of 25 from the field, he also had 7 turnovers, and that had a direct impact on the team, an offensive rating of just 108.8. It'll be interesting to see how the Nuggets attempt to counter those 3 bigs, just taking away everything in the paint, and whether or not they can bounce back with a much-needed Game 2 win. If you enjoyed this breakdown,
they can't. Well, they didn't. I don't know, dog. Minnesota looking like they looking like a matchup nightmare for Denver, y'all. They're looking like a matchup nightmare for Denver, and I don't want to be too reactionary because there is still a full series to play. But I will say it's just a really big statement going up 2-0 against the defending champions on their home court, going home in Game 3. Like, that's a really big statement. That's like, I'm trying to think about it. Maybe, again, this is just BSOLZ being a casual ball knower. What adjustments does Denver even make? Minnesota is just so fucking well-rounded, dog. Minnesota is just so well-rounded defensively that even if they try to really pick on Mike Conley, put Nickeil Alexander-Walker on there. I ain't gonna lie. Put him in. And I think that those issues are addressed immediately. Boy. And even theoretically, like, if they really wanted to go big, I think Naz Reid and Cat are mobile enough, offensively that you could run Naz Reid at the 3, Cat at the 4, and Gobert at the 5, and just have 3 motherfuckers to throw at Jokic. Like, that's kind of crazy. I don't know. Maybe that's extreme, but whoo, Jamal Murray. Like, imagine they roll up a lineup of, like, Ant, Jada McDaniels, Naz Reid, Cat, and Gobert. 3 dudes to send at Jokic, and they got 2 dudes to just hound Jamal Murray. MPJ bail us out. I ain't gonna lie. MPJ bail us out. Let's do it. I'm gonna test you. At this point, I do have Minnesota winning this series. I do have Minnesota winning this series. I just think going down 0-2 in this fashion is just tough. I think Denver's composure was definitely tested in game 2. Seeing how Mike Malone was reacting to referee calls. I'm surprised he didn't got a tech for that. How Jamal Murray was throwing tantrums on the bench, and he might even get suspended into game 3. It's just crazy that a team that, like, I ain't gonna lie, a team that we thought was so inevitable, we thought was so poisoned. Again, I think this title really just encapsulate all my thoughts when the NBA champions start to look human. With how they played against the Lakers, with how they've been playing elite teams throughout this regular season, we really thought, like, despite there being a 64-win team in the East that's putting up, crazy historic regular season numbers, with just how this team executes against elite teams when they really need to. Like, we called Denver good team merchants. Like, that's how highly regarded Denver is. It's just crazy to me that, like, in a matter of 4 days, they look human like fuck. This team looks human like shit. And they for a team that a lot of people, I'm gonna keep it a stack. I know more people that had this Denver Nuggets repeating than the Celtics winning, than OKC winning, than definitely Minnesota winning. Just off the top of my head, like, a lot of elites, not elite, but a lot of media members specifically, when we talk about objectivity going into these playoffs, a lot of people had Denver winning this shit. And for them to, I'm going to keep it a stack, they're on pace to get swept, if not get taken out in 5 games at this rate. That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. And I do think it says a lot about the parity in the league and just how hard it is to repeat now. I don't think it should be an indictment on Denver, to be honest with you. Maybe that's dick suck. But it's just so hard to repeat now that, even when we look at last season's champions and how well they executed, there really is a shot that another team can just beat them if we replayed the same series the next following season with a couple of improvements. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people after 2021 had Milwaukee coming out the East again and winning it. That didn't happen. After 2022, a lot of people had Golden State coming back. This is Golden State. They're just, they're so, you know what I'm saying? This is the dynasty. They doing dynasty things that you can't get rid of them. Gets knocked out by the Lakers. And then we're having the same discussion again this year. Denver looked inevitable, and now they look human. I think even if Minnesota makes it to the finals this year, I personally feel like there's going to be so much dick suck if/when that happens, that next season, no one's beating Minnesota, man. They've been there, done that. And it's going to be better. And then they're going to be knocked out by, like, the Grizzlies or some shit. And it's going to be a fair and square ass loss. So I don't know. I love the era that we're in right now. I also tweeted this out on Twitter. If Denver loses, just the concept, just get the dick out your mouth real quick, all right? Because y'all gonna see someone that's gonna make y'all mad. If Denver loses this series, the idea that one of these guys is going to get their first one is crazy. And I understand not a lot of people got the Cavs making it all the way. Not a lot of people got the Pacers making it all the way to winning this shit. But the possibility, just no matter what outcome happens, best case, worst case, most realistic, least realistic, one of Luka, SGA, Ant, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Jason Tatum, or Donovan Mitchell gets their first championship. For a lot of these franchises, their first championship in a long-ass fucking time is crazy. And the fact that all of these dudes are under 32, the league's in good hands, y'all. The league's in good hands. The league's in good hands. And there's a couple players who didn't even make it far into the dance that, in my opinion, are going to be in these conversations moving forward. A Paolo Banchero, a Victor Wembanyama, them boys in Houston. Hopefully them boys in Detroit soon. It's going to be fun, y'all. It's going to be fun, and I'm here for it. With that being said, links to Hoop Venues video will be in the description down below. And I'm out, man. Peace.